One fall evening, David and his friend stopped by a newly opened cafe. They had already ordered and were talking softly. Suddenly, David's friend nodded toward the stage. David followed his gaze and marvelled. A girl came to the microphone. She was incredibly beautiful. Thick dark hair, brown eyes framed by thick eyelashes, slim waist and sensual lips. The music played, and the stranger started singing. Her strong and high voice reached the deepest parts of the heart and the hidden corners of the soul. David's skin tingled with goosebumps as she sang. "Who is she? Do you know her?" David managed to ask, overwhelmed with emotions and at a loss for words. "Her name is Carrie." His friend grinned, noticing the sparkle in David's eyes. "She has an incredibly beautiful voice." When Carrie finished singing, the audience stood up and applauded. David and his friends stayed at the cafe a little longer, but Carrie didn't go back on stage that evening. David was captivated by the angelic voice of the singer. Secretly from his friend, he started coming to the cafe to enjoy her singing. He always tried to get a table closer to the stage so no one would disturb his admiration for her. After each performance, he handed her flowers and soft toys, and it took a month before he mustered the courage to speak with her. "Carrie," he said, "may I invite you to my table and offer you a glass of wine?" "I don't drink alcohol, but I wouldn't mind a glass of water," she replied with a smile. She had noticed this man for a long time, but she did not show it, and secretly longed for him, regretting that he was too shy. David pulled out a chair, inviting her to sit down. He called the waiter and ordered water for the lady. "You sing beautifully," David confessed, overcoming his embarrassment. "I've never heard such a marvellous voice in my life." "Is that why you come here every Friday?" "Yes, I come to you because I like you. By the way, would you like something to eat?" "Thank you, but no, I have to hurry home." "May I walk you out?" Carrie nodded in agreement. David was overjoyed, paid the waiter and left the cafe following the girl. "I live nearby," she explained. "It's very convenient. No need to worry about taking a cab." "You have real talent. Did you study singing somewhere?" Talent is 70% hard work every day, and the rest is a gift from above. It took a lot for me to succeed. I studied at vocal school. You could have had a brilliant future. Why did you give up the big stage and started singing in this cafe? I can't believe that was your dream." "You're right," Carrie admitted. "Probably a successful solo career was waiting for me. But once, on a friend's birthday, we went to a karaoke bar. They persuaded me to sing in public for the first time. It was well received, and the audience didn't want to let me go and begged for more. But at this moment, I realized the big stage wasn't for me. I panicked at the thought of performing in front of a large audience. That's why I'm happy with a job at this cafe." "The cafe owner must have been happy to hire you." "Yes," Carrie laughed. "He gained more clients. Everyone came to hear me sing." "I've been watching you for a month. You have your own fans who come here to hear you sing every time." "Are you one of them?" Carrie asked with a smile. "Yes, I couldn't wait until Friday to see you again. I confess it has never happened to me before. You're amazing." "Well, thank you for such kind words, but here's my house," Carrie said, stopping. "I hate to say goodbye," David said disappointedly. "I would like to invite you to the cinema." "To the cinema?" The girl smiled. "Why not? I can't even remember the last time I went there." So David and Carrie began dating, and their quiet, calm relationship gradually blossomed into love. After 3 years, David decided to take a serious step. "Where are we going?" Carrie cheerfully asked David when she noticed that instead of going home, he was driving the car out of town. "It's a surprise," David replied with a smile, and soon they arrived at the beach, where the golden sand shimmered in the rays of the setting sun. "Wow, this place is incredibly beautiful," exclaimed the girl. "How did you find it?" "This is where my friends and I used to swim when we were kids." The beach was secluded, hidden from prying eyes by a ridge of stones. They walked around the ridge, and Carrie cried out in amazement. "What is it?" A paraglider was soaring in the setting sunset, and there was not a cloud in sight. Suddenly, a white, heart-shaped image appeared on the blue canvas of the clear sky. "Oh my God, how beautiful!" Carrie jumped, clapping her hands like a little girl. "How is this possible?" "I asked my friends, the paragliders, to make this for you," David replied with a smile. "Carrie, I don't know how to confess my love to you." He turned the girl towards him and looked into her eyes. "This is the most wonderful declaration of love," Carrie said softly. "Thank you." "Carrie," David's tone became serious, "I love you, and I want you to be my wife." He took a small velvet box out of his jacket pocket, opened it, and revealed a beautiful ring. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," she replied in a trembling voice, and tears glistened in the happy bride's eyes. She hugged David and kissed him. "I was afraid you wouldn't agree," the young man said as he pulled away. Then he took a step to the side and pulled out a bouquet of flowers from a pile of stones. "I want us to never be apart. I want to admire you for the rest of my life. I dream of our children being like you." How could I refuse? When you've arranged all this beauty for me, you've given me such a wonderful autumn sunset. Meanwhile, the sun had disappeared below the horizon, and the river breeze grew cool. Carrie shivered. "Are you cold?" David asked with concern, putting his arm around her shoulders. "Let's go home. I want to celebrate our engagement. And there's another surprise waiting for you." The young couple stood a little longer watching the paragliders in the sky. "What a pity that the heart-shaped image disappeared from the sky so quickly," Carrie said sadly. "We will definitely come back here," David promised. "And if you like, we can go up into the sky too." They got into the car and headed home. When they entered the apartment, Carrie gasped. At home, a romantic candlelit dinner awaited her. "How have you done it?" she asked in amazement. "It wasn't difficult at all," David grinned, helping the girls sit down at the table. "A phone call and card payment, and dinner is on our table." "You're quite the spender," Carrie laughed. "I don't spare anything," David said, raising his wine glass. "I am the happiest man today because the woman I have loved for so long has said yes. Thank you, darling, and I love you." "And I love you very much," Carrie replied, looking at him with eyes full of adoration. "I don't know how I lived without you. You are the most precious thing I have. I can't stop thanking God for meeting you. We should start thinking about our wedding, but first, I want you to meet my mum," David suddenly declared. "Now that I've proposed to you, it's necessary. Besides, Mum has been eager to meet you for a long time. She is a wonderful woman, but she has one flaw. She loves me too much." He chuckled. "What if she doesn't like me?" "That won't happen. If I like you, it means my mum will like you too. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll get along. So tomorrow we're expected for lunch with my mum. Refusing is not an option, as she's fully prepared. You don't want to upset your future mother-in-law, do you?" "No, I'd love to meet her," the girl agreed. However, her heart was troubled, unsure of how her future mother-in-law would feel about her. "Okay, I'll pick you up in the morning by car. We'll leave early, as my mum doesn't like tardiness." The next morning it was freezing, despite the rain from the day before. "It's slippery," Carrie remarked worriedly, anxiously looking at the glistening ice on the road. "Don't worry," reassured her fiancé. "We have plenty of time. There's no need to rush." As they drove, they encountered traffic jams and had to navigate through the flow of cars. "We're terribly late," David frowned. "Mum won't be pleased. I don't want to earn her reproach on her first meeting with you." "But it's not our fault that there are so many accidents on the road," Carrie cautiously remarked. "She's a clever woman, she'll understand. In fact, she may even praise us for being cautious." Try explaining that to your mother, David said, keeping a careful eye on the road. She doesn't tolerate delays. Finally, we're on the highway. He sighed with relief. Now we can pick up the pace a bit. There aren't many cars. If we hurry, we'll make it in time for lunch. But David, please don't rush, Carrie pleaded. Look, the road is slippery. I'm afraid. No need to fear. David waved his hand nonchalantly. My car is a front-wheel drive, so it won't let me down. Even if it skids a little, I'll add some gas and it will stabilize itself. By the way, please pass me the water. It's behind my seat. My mouth is dry. Carrie unbuckled her seatbelt to reach for the water. At that moment, the car wiggled. Hold on! David shouted in fear, trying to regain control of the car, but it was no use. David! Carrie watched in horror as their car slid from side to side on the road. Do something! We're going to crash! Everything happened instantly. David tried to avoid hitting a tree, but to no avail. Carrie was thrown through the windshield, while David's airbag deployed. He lost consciousness briefly, hitting his head on the door. People nearby rushed to their aid. Hey, young man! David heard someone's voice. Are you alive? We'll get you out. Your hands and legs seem intact. Say something. Carrie? David said slowly. Carrie, is she alive? There was a girl with me. How is she? What happened to her? Please tell me. What happened to Carrie? She's alive. They are providing her with first aid. Hang in there. The help is on its way. They helped David out of the car. He felt dizzy. However, he managed to stagger to where his fiancée was lying. The paramedics surrounded her, attending to her wounds. My beloved! David fell to his knees before Carrie, crying. He took her hand and brought it to his lips, kissing it. Forgive me, I'm a fool for not listening to you. I'm so sorry. What have I done? David thought fearfully, looking at his beloved's face, disfigured by deep cuts. This can't be her. This can't be my Carrie. It's my fault that she's like this. God, there's no forgiveness for me. I can't feel my face. The girl barely moved her lips. David, upon hearing her voice, realized that the bloodied figure before him was indeed Carrie. You mustn't speak right now, the paramedic said sternly, tending to their wounds, and they turned to David. Who is this girl to you? This is my fiancée, Carrie, my darling. Everything will be all right, David answered, trying not to look at his beloved. David, Carrie asked in a whisper, what's the matter with my face? Tell me the truth. I don't know, it's bandaged. Everything will be all right. You'll be treated, don't say anything. We'll come to the hospital. They'll help you, just hang on. I can't feel my face. It hurts so much. The girl cried and fell into darkness. Carrie slowly opened her eyes. You're awake at last. Well done. She heard a male voice beside her. What's wrong with me? The girl asked slowly. She found it hard to look at the man leaning toward her. Am I in the hospital? You have a concussion, the doctor said after a moment of silence. However, your face and hands are the most affected. Do you remember the accident? Carrie lifted her hands. They were bandaged. She brought them up to her face, touched it, and cried out in pain. Yes, I remember. It was slippery and we lost control of the car. When will you remove the bandage? I want to see my face. In a couple of days, the doctor replied, quiet again. Then we can assess the extent of the damage and decide what to do next. Plastic surgery will be required, and I think more than one. We'll do our best. Is my face badly damaged? Will I have scars? Tell me the truth. I don't want to deceive you, but you won't look the same as before the accident. I'm sorry. The cuts from the glass were too deep. Unfortunately, they'll leave scars, and you'll need to do something about them. But nothing is impossible today, the doctor reassured her. There are various modern technologies available. Tears welled up in Carrie's eyes. "What about David?" she said weakly. "How is he? I want to see him." "He's already home. He was lucky, barely injured, just shocked from the impact. Well, I'll leave you to rest." When the doctor closed the door, Carrie called her mother. "Mummy," the girl said tearfully. "Mummy, please come. I'm in the hospital." She heard her mother shriek, and in a couple of hours, Miranda was already by her daughter's side in the hospital. The woman sat down on the edge of the bed, took her daughter's bandaged hands in her own, and started kissing them. "What happened?" she asked, barely holding back tears. Carrie told her mother what had happened to her, and at the end asked pitifully, "Am I ugly?" "Not at all, my dear." Miranda gently stroked her daughter's face, hidden under the bandages, and smiled. "You are the most beautiful. You are my daughter, after all." But the mother's heart was bleeding, sobs ready to burst from her chest, but she held on. "I must not show weakness in front of my daughter. I must be strong," thought the woman. "She needs my help now, not my breakdowns." "The doctor said surgery will be necessary, but it's not covered," Carrie said. "We will definitely do it, don't worry. We'll find the money, and David will help us as well. How is he, by the way?" "He only has a mild concussion and a small cut. He needs some time to recover, to deal with the car and the police. He hasn't visited me yet." "Well, all right." Miranda stood up. "I'll go. The doctor didn't tell me to stay long, and I'll come again tomorrow." She bent down, kissed her daughter. "Get well. Don't miss me. I love you." The woman left the room and headed for the doctor's office. "Doctor, tell me, how is Carrie's condition? What should I prepare for?" "I must confess I have nothing to calm you down. The cuts are deep, and I would be more concerned about her mental state. She will have to come to terms with the fact that her appearance is irreversibly changed. I believe your greatest challenges lie ahead. You will need to raise money for plastic surgery and be patient. It will be a devastating blow for her to see herself." Grief-stricken, Miranda left the hospital, sank on a bench in the park, and finally let out her tears. "My poor girl," she thought. "How unlucky she is. She won't be able to go on stage now. It would crush her." Suddenly the woman wiped away her tears. "No, I'll do everything to recover my daughter's face, no matter how much it costs." Determined, she drove home. And at that time, on the other side of town, Mrs. Berger was blocking her son's way. "Son, where are you going? The doctor said to stay in bed a little longer." "Mum, I have to go to the hospital. Carrie is there. She's waiting for me. I can't hide like a coward, especially since I'm perfectly fine. I must be near her. It's been 2 days. I still haven't gone to see her." "You can't go." The woman became agitated. "You need to recover. After all, you had a concussion. Look at you. You're still fragile. I won't let you go. And she's not alone. She's got doctors and nurses looking after her. I'm the one who's looking after you here, and I'm very concerned about your health, so come back to bed at once." "Mum, I'm fine. I'm already healthy. I want to see Carrie. She needs my support. You can't forbid me to go to my fiancé." "Who I still haven't seen in person," snorted Mrs. Berger. "You know what, darling? I'm coming with you. I'm going to meet this girl finally. I won't let you go alone, and don't mind. What if you get sick?" "Why would you go there? She'll be uncomfortable in your presence. Mum, if you could see. She'll never be as beautiful as before. I must support her. Poor thing, she doesn't know what awaits her yet." "I don't mind, but only on my terms. We'll go to the hospital together, otherwise I won't let you out of the apartment. Don't talk me out of it." "All right, Mum, we'll go together." The son gave in. Carrie was dozing. She heard the door creak softly and opened her eyes. "Hello, darling," she heard her fiancé's voice. "I'm sorry I couldn't visit you sooner." "David!" The girl rejoiced and raised herself on the bed. "I've been waiting so long for you to come to me. It's boring here without you. How are you feeling?" I was anxious about you. You didn't call, you didn't come. I didn't know what was the matter with you at all." "Please lie down, darling." David came over to her and sat down beside her. "I'm all right. It's not like I was badly hurt. I feel fine now." "He's a victim of the accident too," Mrs. Berger cut in. "Only he's trying not to show how hard it's been on him. He's barely awake, and he went straight to your hospital." "Carrie, meet my mother," David said, embarrassed by his mother's cold tone. "Pleased to meet you," the girl said quietly. "It's a pity we had to make your acquaintance under such sad circumstances," Mrs. Berger remarked calmly. "But I was anxious to see the girl about whom my son had told me so much. What do the doctors say?" "They say plastic surgery will be necessary," Carrie answered timidly. "It's a pity, of course, that it happened like that," Mrs. Berger sympathized. "But you're young, you'll get better. Everything will heal. You'll be as good as new." Carrie nodded in agreement, but she herself kept her loving eyes on her fiancé. "I already feel fine, so I'll come to you more often," David promised, "and then you'll get your stitches out and you'll return home." "What about our wedding?" the girl asked shyly. "The wedding will have to be postponed." David looked at her guiltily. "I'm sorry it's come to this, but don't worry, we'll have it later. The main thing is to get you out of hospital as soon as possible." At that moment, a nurse entered the room and called Carrie to dress her wounds. "Will you wait for me?" Carrie begged. "Will you stay with me a little longer?" "Yes," David nodded. "Don't worry, I won't leave. Come back soon." When Carrie left, Mrs. Berger lashed out at her son. "And what wedding are you talking about? David, please, think carefully." Mrs. Berger tried to reason with her wayward son. "She won't be the same. Why would you waste your life on a woman with a disfigured face? And what about the children? You'll have kids someday, won't you? Have you considered that they might be afraid or embarrassed of their mother? Or they'll be teased if anyone sees them with a mother like that? Son, I know you're a noble man, but think about your future. You'll be tied to her for life." "Mum, what are you talking about?" David winced. "We can make plastic surgery. Today's medicine can reconstruct a person's face. We'll find the best clinic. I won't spare any expense for Carrie." "How much will the operation cost? Where will you get the money? Why should you burden yourself with all of this? Please cancel the wedding." The woman hugged her son. "Don't ruin your destiny, I beg you. How will you live with her? She's ugly. You won't be able to go out with her. Everyone will laugh at you. It's completely reckless to get involved with a woman like that." "But I love her," David cried out. "Don't you understand?" "Love? To hell with that kind of love. You'll find someone else. Look around, there are so many girls. You're so handsome. Any girl would be happy to marry you. Spare my nerves. Don't make any hasty decisions. If the wedding doesn't happen, the world won't fall apart. You don't owe that girl anything." "I don't need anyone else but her. I'll marry her no matter what she looks like. And it's my fault that Carrie ended up like this. If I leave her now, how will I ever forgive myself?" "Pity is speaking in you," objected the mother, "and it's a bad advisor. First and foremost, think about yourself and me. I am your family. You may have many women in your life, but only one mother. Are you trying to drive me to an early grave?" Mrs. Berger clutched at her heart. "You're an ungrateful egoist. How else can you explain the fact that you value your own mother less than a stranger?" "No, Mum," exclaimed David in despair. "I care for both of you." "But she's going to cost both of us a lot. Why are you clinging to her? Do you want to sacrifice your life, your career, for love? How long will it take for her to heal? A year or two? And I want to have time to see my grandchildren." She wept. "I don't know how much time I have left in this world. Will she be able to give birth to a healthy child? I beg you, son, don't ruin yourself." Meanwhile, that very moment, Carrie was coming back from the treatment room. She was rushing because her fiancé was waiting for her in the ward. Her heart overflowed with tenderness for him. She had already grasped the handle of the slightly ajar door when suddenly she heard this conversation between David and his mother. "Mum!" David looked at his mother in despair. "Don't force me to make a choice. You know I love you very much, but Carrie means a lot to me too. If you truly love me, worry about me and give up the idea of marrying her. I think she herself must realize that there can be nothing between you now. I'll never accept her, and if you do bring her into our home, I'll curse you." The girl, holding her breath, waited to see how the groom would respond. He was silent for a moment, and then a heavy sigh was heard. "Okay, frankly speaking, deep down, I feel that your words have sense. But I just need to think about it. And most important, I need to find the right words to say so as not to hurt her too much. I'm glad you listened to my opinion. Remember, a mother would never do anything to harm her child. I care about you and your future." Carrie stood with her back against the cold wall, tears choking her. After calming down a little, she swung the door open. "I'm back." The girl tried to put her usual cheerfulness in her voice, pretending she hadn't heard anything. "Thank you for waiting for me, but the treatments have been so tiring. I'd like to rest. Excuse me, can you leave me?" Yes. David immediately hurried away, delighted at the opportunity to leave. "Rest. It's the best medicine for you now. I'll be sure to come back when the doctors allow it. We'll walk with you in the park. Here in the hospital, there's a great park." "Get well, dear," Mrs. Berger said in an indifferent tone, and looked triumphantly at her frustrated daughter-in-law. This battle for her son, she had won. David never came to the hospital again. "I want to look at myself in the mirror." It took a long time before Carrie dared to ask the doctor. "I'll have to do it someday anyway, let it be now." "Kate, bring the mirror into the room and remove the bandages," said the doctor. Carrie closed her eyes, gathering her strength, then resolutely opened them and saw her reflection. "Is it me?" she asked in horror, tears showing in her eyes. In the mirror she saw a stranger whose face was disfigured with scars. One eye was half closed, pulled down by a scar. The other scar fixed the corner of her mouth downward. The face was inanimate, as if someone had pulled an intimidating mask over it. Carrie moaned helplessly, covering her face with her palms and scratching at the skin with her fingers, as if she wanted to peel it off. "How am I going to live with this face? I'm ugly." She threw her face on the pillow, sobbing and pounding her fists on the bed. "Get her a sedative right away. She's hysterical," ordered the doctor. He grabbed Carrie, turned her towards him, and hugged her tightly, not allowing her to break free. She was sobbing and couldn't stop. The robe on the doctor's chest became wet from her tears. "Everything will be okay," he coaxed Carrie. "You'll manage. You're strong. The main thing is, you're alive." "Why should I have such a life? Don't you see what has become of me? I'm disgusted with myself. And how will people around me look at me? David was right. I'm ugly. I can't be loved. He was right to leave me." A nurse came running in, administered a sedative, and in a few minutes the young woman was hushed and limp in the doctor's arms. "Everything will be all right," he muttered as he tucked the patient into bed. "Things will get better. Plastic surgery will do its job and help fix your face." "But it will never be the same again," Carrie said as she fell asleep. Secretly from her mother, David found out when Carrie was discharged from the hospital and came to meet her. He was rushing, holding a huge bouquet of flowers. "And where is Carrie?" he asked, entering her ward and seeing the nurse rearranging the bed on which his fiancée had recently been lying. "Carrie has been discharged," the nurse said without stopping her work. "You're late. You should have come earlier. If you're her groom, she left you a letter." David nodded, and the nurse took an envelope out of her pocket and handed it to him. The man took the letter and handed the nurse a bouquet in gratitude. Upset, he went out of the hospital, sat down on a bench and began to read. Dear beloved David, I could not even imagine that one day I would have to write these lines. But everything has changed instantly. David, I heard you and your mum, and I don't want to be a burden to you. Your mum is right. We can't have anything in common now. I've changed since the accident, and I'll never be the same again. And it's not just my looks. Our lives have been divided into before and after. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I don't want you to feel obligated to marry me. You don't owe me anything. The time I spent with you was the best time of my life. It was a happy time. I'm grateful for the love you gave me, but now my eyes have been opened. Honestly, I'm glad things happened the way they did. I guess you blame yourself for the accident." At these words, David jerked as if he'd been slapped. "But I don't hold a grudge against you. It's probably fate. Don't come looking for me. Our roads have parted forever." "Why did you run away, you silly girl?" David muttered under his breath. He took out his phone and dialed a familiar number, but in response he heard, "The subscriber is unavailable." I'm sorry, my love," the man whispered to himself, as if Carrie could hear him. He was horrified at the thought that he had been weak-willed and had gone along with his mother. Yes, I was frightened when I saw your face. I didn't want to believe that I was looking at my favourite beauty. I even thought I was mistaken, and in front of me with some strange woman, not you, my beloved Carrie. The accident mutilated your lips, your nose, your cheeks, everything I loved to kiss so much. This new face was disgusting. I refused to believe it was you. I was never going to deceive you by pretending love. You were right to leave without saying goodbye. You are stronger than me." David stood up, hesitated for a moment, then tore the letter into small pieces and threw it in the trash. Afterwards, he straightened his shoulders, took a deep breath, and walked away from the hospital. "Daughter," Miranda coaxed Carrie, "please eat. You'll starve yourself. You've shut yourself away and are sitting at home without saying a word. You're burying yourself alive. Shall we go for a walk? It's been so long since you've left your room." "I don't want anything," Carrie replied in a colourless voice. She lay with her back against the wall, wrapping herself in a blanket. "Maybe I want to die. With a face like mine, I can't even go out on the street. People will be frightened. My place is in horror movies now." "My little girl," her mother secretly brushed away a tear. "You have to live, at least for me. You have arms, legs, and most importantly, you still have your voice." "I'll never be able to go on stage again anyway. I'd rather die than live with the thought that no one wants me." "Don't say that. I need you. We'll definitely think of something. What about David? Why doesn't he call?" "We broke up." "Why? Did he really leave you? At a time like this? What a rascal." "I don't want to discuss it. He's gone. Please, leave me alone." The mother sighed heavily and left the room. However, she wasn't going to give up so quickly. "No way," she said, sitting down at the computer. "I won't let you drive yourself into depression. There has to be a way out. I'm going to find a clinic that can help you get back to normal." "Here it is," she exclaimed after a while. "There is such a clinic, and here is the name of the doctor. Wow, quite young, and already so famous. Let's see, some pictures of the patients. Yes, he's really talented. I'll send a picture of Carrie and schedule an appointment." After attaching the photos, Miranda clicked the button to send the request and sighed contentedly. Now we wait for the call, and if Carrie refuses to go, I'll make her go. She's not an enemy to herself, is she? A couple of weeks later, the counselling invitation arrived. "Carrie!" Miranda cautiously entered her daughter's room. Carrie was standing at the window looking out at the street. "I have good news for you," her mother said. The girl silently turned to face her. "I got in touch with a doctor at a clinic specialising in complicated cases like yours. They're expecting you for an appointment in a month." "Why would you do that? I'm not going anywhere anyway. I'm ugly now. It's like a stigma. How do you expect me to ride on a train? Do you want me to be out in the open and have people pointing fingers at me? No one will let me in crowded places. I'm a freak. Don't you get it yet? It's pointless. I won't even be able to get a job with a face like this. I'd rather die." "Don't you dare talk about yourself like that. I won't let anyone insult you. And I won't let you confine yourself to the apartment." The woman struggled to hold back her tears as she looked at her daughter's face. "We'll definitely come up with something." "What can we think of?" Carrie grinned bitterly. She lay in bed and wrapped herself in a blanket, isolating herself from her mother. "I wish I were a snake and could shed my skin, or at least to put a stocking over my face so no one can see my scars." "Exactly," Miranda exclaimed, clapping her hand to her forehead. "How did I not think of this before? We should order a special hat with a veil to cover your face. How would you like that? Women used to cover their faces with veils. Why not do the same now? Who would object? You'll be a woman of mystery." "Can you find one?" Carrie's voice was filled with interest as she turned to her mother. "I think so, and no one will see your face. With a hat with veil, certainly no one will dare to offend you. They won't have a reason to." "Mummy, if you can do it, then I'll go." A few days later, Carrie tried on a dainty black hat with a thin lace veil. The veil lay like a second skin, holding the scars but outlining the contour of her face. "There," Miranda remarked, admiring her daughter. "Now you can be recognized only by your figure. And you have a beautiful figure." The girl stopped in front of the mirror and looked at herself. She liked what she saw. "Thank you, Mum. I feel more confident now. I'm ready to go to the clinic." "There's a good girl." The woman sighed with relief. "You'll definitely get help there. I've read the reviews. The doctor works real miracles and will help you." A couple of days later, they had train tickets in hand. On the appointed day, they arrived in the city, checked into a hotel, and went looking for the clinic. "Good afternoon." Miranda walked up to the receptionist's desk. "We have an appointment." "Yes." The nurse looked at the computer and nodded affirmatively. "Come into the office. The doctor is waiting for you." Carrie timidly entered the office with her mother. "Hello." The doctor smiled at her. "Come in. Take off your mask, please. What a great idea you have to protect yourself from prying eyes." "It was my mum's idea," the girl said, embarrassed. The man was handsome with strong but surprisingly soft hands. He scrutinized Carrie's face, touched the scars. Flipping through her medical history, he shook his head concernedly. "I don't want to hide anything from you, but the case is really complicated. Of course, your surgeon did his best and carefully stitched up the cuts, but they are deep in some places, so the scars are rough. Medicine, of course, is capable of much now, but the treatment will be long. It will take more than one operation." When mother and daughter heard the approximate cost of just one surgery, they turned pale. "You see, your daughter has too much damage. In fact, we will have to restore her face to get back her former appearance. It is not an easy task, and it will have to be done urgently before the scars finally harden. If you agree, we will make a contract now and begin the treatment." "We'll have to think about it." Miranda looked over at her daughter, desperation in her eyes. "We didn't expect that this kind of money would be required." "Then of course think," the doctor agreed. "You have the phone number. When you're ready, contact us. But I'd recommend that you don't take too long to respond. Losing time will worsen the results of the treatment." The women walked out of the clinic frustrated. "We'll never be able to raise that amount of money," Carrie muttered, "especially now that you're working alone." "We have to think of something," Mother answered, realizing that the money was unaffordable for their family. "There are some charity funds. We can collect them, I'll find out. We'll put a call out on the internet, ask our friends, acquaintances. There are many kind people out there. They'll help us with our grief. Let's pull ourselves together. Let's not give in to despair." "Mummy," Carrie hugged her mother, then pulled away from her and said firmly, "I love you very much, but let's face it, no one will give us that kind of money, and we won't be able to raise it ourselves until the end of the century. We mustn't cling to illusions." "But what's to be done? We must not give up." "We must just live," replied Carrie simply. "Since I didn't die in that accident, so I should live. Now that I have such a hat with a mask, I'll try to find a work." The mother looked at her daughter. "It's going to be all right, sweetheart. Let's go to the hotel. We're going home tomorrow. At home, the walls help. You'll feel better surrounded by acquaintances and friends." "I'll never feel better now," replied Carrie sadly. "You go. I want to walk around a bit, see what sights there are here. I need to be alone for a while. I'm sorry. It's been a hard day." Yes, I understand, but don't stay too long. It's a strange city." "Okay, Mummy, don't worry." Carrie walked through the city, looking at the houses, old buildings, churches, with interest. "What is this?" The girl stopped and listened. "Is it just me, or is there really someone playing?" She followed the sound, leading her to a cafe. The familiar tune that poured out from its open door brought a smile to Carrie's face. It was her favourite music, and the musician playing it was truly talented. Curiosity piqued, she entered the cafe. At this hour, there were hardly any customers. Mesmerised, she took a seat near the bar. "Can I take your order?" the bartender asked, intrigued by her mask. "I would like a glass of juice," Carrie replied, her eyes fixed on the musician, who effortlessly played without glancing at the keys. His slender fingers danced delicately across the keys, producing a soft and enchanting melody. As the music faded, he placed his hands on his knees, still lost in the lingering sounds. Eventually, he stood up and joined her at the bar. His piercing blue eyes, framed by long lashes, stared at her intently. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Carrie snapped under his intense gaze. "Hasn't anyone told you that it's impolite to stare at a stranger so blatantly?" "I apologize," the man stammered, averting his gaze. His eyes remained fixated on the same point without blinking. "I didn't mean to offend you. Please don't think ill of me. I assure you I had no intention of insulting you." "He's blind," the bartender whispered, leaning towards Carrie. "I'm sorry," Carrie blushed. "I didn't know. I'm very embarrassed for jumping to conclusions." "It's I who should apologize for startling you," the man replied. "I usually keep my distance from customers, but there's something warm about you." He paused. "What's your name?" "Carrie." "And mine is Ron. It's a pleasure to meet you." He extended his hand and Carrie accepted it. "You have slender fingers, and your hand feels delicate." "You played beautifully," Carrie complimented him, gently withdrawing her hand, and disappointment flickered across Ron's face. "I came here because I heard the music from afar," the woman added. "Did you enjoy it?" Ron perked up. "I love playing here. The owner purchased a fine instrument. It's a shame that there are not many truly music enthusiasts among the patrons. Do you enjoy music?" "Yes, I do," Carrie smiled, reminiscing. "I used to sing in a cafe like this." "You sing?" Ron exclaimed. "What a fool I am. I should have known right away that you have a singing voice. Come, I want to hear you sing now." He confidently walked towards the instrument. "Oh, I feel embarrassed," Carrie protested, flustered. "You don't know my repertoire. How will you accompany me? You can't see the notes. I'm sorry, I've offended you again."
Don't be offended, Ron laughed. You apologize too often. I'm accustomed to my situation and don't take offense if somebody unintentionally says something awkward. What would you enjoy singing? I'm not certain. I'm really embarrassed. It's a shame to hide your talent. You and I were given the gift of playing and singing for people by God. We have no right to hide it. Ron sat down at the instrument and ran his fingers across the keys. Start singing, and I'll pick up the melody. Carrie began, getting lost in her singing and oblivious to the fact that the cafe had filled with people. Some were even standing, since there were no more vacant tables. She only had eyes for the pianist, reacting to every change in his expression, as his face spoke more than his eyes. As she finished her 6th song, the hall erupted in applause. Thank you, Carrie beamed, looking out at the crowd. No one has ever applauded me like this before. Encore! The audience chanted. Sing more! Good evening. An older gentleman approached her. Your marvellous voice has drawn an unprecedented number of people to the cafe. I'm the director of this place, and I won't beat around the bush. I'm offering you a job. I'll pay you well. You and Ron make a fantastic duet. Both of you are incredibly talented. I'm thrilled that my cafe has become a meeting place for you. Oh, that's impossible, Carrie exclaimed, flustered. I never even considered it. Why not? It will be well compensated. Our town doesn't have a single cafe with live music. We'll be the first, and we'll make a fortune. I guarantee no one will offer you a better deal. The thing is, I live in another city. I already have tickets in my pocket, and I don't think I'll ever return here. Do you have a family? No, I live with my mum. She's eagerly awaiting for me to return. Do you have a prestigious job you'd hate to lose? I lost it in a car accident. So what's there to think about? The man looked at the young woman triumphantly. You have absolutely nothing to lose. And here you've already found admirers of your talent and a job. But I can sing only in my hat with veil. No one would reproach you for that. On the contrary, your unusual appearance gives your image a certain mystique and gives people another reason to stop by to take a look at you. But first, people will go for your voice. I've never heard that before. I need to consult my mum. We're just passing through the city. Think about it, but not for long. I'll see you tomorrow night to sign a cooperation agreement. Carrie, please agree. Ron stood up from behind his instrument. We'll make a great team. I just met a worthy partner, and I don't want to lose you immediately. He found her hand and squeezed it. Carrie warmly said goodbye to her new acquaintance and hurried to the hotel. Daughter, you're here at last. I've been worried sick. Miranda met her daughter right at the threshold, as if she was standing at the door, waiting for her to enter the room. Where have you been for so long? I thought you were lost or something had happened. Mummy! Carrie hugged her mother and spun her around. You have no idea what has happened to me in these few hours. I'm staying here, in this city. What do you mean you're staying here? No, I don't even want to hear about it. The woman protested. We're leaving here tomorrow. There's nothing to keep us here. I'm not going anywhere. I've been offered a job. I'm going to sing in a cafe. But you can sing in our city. Why stay here? There are strangers around. That's what I wanted to tell you. I met a man. When did you meet a man? The mother was surprised. Now, Mum. He plays so well, but you can't help but listen to him. He's so handsome, so kind, so gentle. I can't believe it. When did you see all these qualities in him? Miranda shook her head in shock. Sometimes it takes a minute to realise that this is your man. Now I know for sure love at first sight exists. He's like that. Carrie gave her mother a big hug. I'll introduce you to him. Ron is a wonderful man. Mummy, I'm a grown-up that can manage my own life. I have nothing to lose. I've been dumped by the man I loved, fired from my job. There's nothing holding me back, and here in this city, I can start from scratch. What about me?
tears showed in Miranda's eyes.
You haven't thought at all what will happen to me?
You don't need me anymore. No, of course I do. My dear, dear Mummy, I'm so grateful for your support. I promise I'll be calling as soon as I have a minute to spare. I'll never stop loving you. Mummy, you've done so much for me. Carrie hugged her mother. But now I want to take care of myself. This is my chance to try to be happy. And this man you speak of, how did he feel about your looks? He's blind. He can't see me. And to everyone else, my face is hidden under a mask. No one here knows of my misfortune. They are only interested in my voice. You should have seen how I was applauded. I feel needed again. Well then, my dear daughter, you do have a right to your life. I will not hold you back. What is the most important thing for a mother? That her child is happy. You must have really found yourself. I haven't seen the sparkle in your eyes in a long time. The next day, Carrie saw her mother off and went to the store to pick out a concert dress. This dress suits you very well, said the saleswoman, admiringly looking at her. It sits on you like a mould. It emphasizes all the advantages of your figure. I also need shoes and gloves, said Carrie and showed her arms. The saleswoman looked at them apprehensively and pulled out long lace gloves. You'll be irresistible in this outfit, she remarked. Back at the hotel, Carrie changed her clothes, styled her thick dark hair, and looked at her reflection in the mirror. Now I'm a real artist. The girl smiled at her reflection. I thought that after the accident, life was over. But it turns out that not everything is still lost. Ron was playing something, sitting at the piano, but as soon as the girl entered the cafe, he immediately raised his head. Carrie, he rejoiced, you decided to stay. How did you know I had entered? She marvelled. I felt your presence. So you're staying? Yes, I've decided to stay. She walked up to him and stopped beside the instrument. I'm overjoyed. The man held out his hand. Carrie shook it. Ron brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. Your hands smell of mint. It's cream, Carrie said, feeling embarrassed by his obvious attention. Despite that, she enjoyed being around him. Did you know that you can learn a lot about a person from their scent? What can you tell about me? The girl laughed. You're a calm, gentle person, completely non-conflicted, and right now, peppermint helps you cope with depression. Am I right? Right. Carrie raised her eyebrows in surprise. How do you know all this? When a person loses one sense, they immediately gain other possibilities. We'll come back to this conversation later, but for now, let's not disappoint the visitors. They've been waiting for you to sing something for a long time. He started playing the first notes and Carrie sang. Her voice was hesitant at first, but then it grew stronger. She didn't look at the audience, she looked at Ron, captivated by his playing. His face shone. The sight of his sightless eyes was mesmerizing. The girl felt his silent support. He listened to her voice and his expression gradually changed. At first, he was tense and worried about her, but then the tension subsided and he calmed down, rejoicing in her success. Bravo! The visitors shouted as the last notes of the piano faded away. They applauded and laughed. Someone handed the happy Carrie flowers, and she couldn't take her eyes off her new friend. A peaceful smile never left his face. Carrie, you have genuine talent, admired the cafe director. I'm lucky that you came to see us. You should be on a big stage. I enjoy cozy concerts. The girl smiled modestly. I don't seek publicity. I haven't asked why you are wearing a mask, he whispered to her, but people speculate, trying to uncover your secret. May I not explain anything? Carrie asked. This subject is too painful for me. All right, but is there anything I can do for you? I'm staying at a hotel. Where can I rent an apartment? I have just the thing for you, the director said happily. My sister rents an apartment out. I think I can arrange a deal with her. I'm sure she'll give me a discount. And the apartment is close to the cafe. "Oh, that would be wonderful, thank you so much." Thus began a new phase in Carrie's life. Miranda called her every evening. "Daughter, I'm anxious. How are you doing alone there? Is the apartment you're living in good?" "Mum, I'm doing fine," the girl reassured her mother. "I enjoy working here, and everyone has been so welcoming. At work I forget about my problem. I have music, and I no longer feel inferior. People look forward to my performances. I like this life. I've accepted that I'll have to wear a mask for the rest of my life. You know, it has its advantages. No one can see my face, and I can observe everyone else. Trust me, it's fascinating." "And how is your new friend?" "Ron?" Carrie blushed. "It feels like fate brought us together in this city, in this cafe. He and I are on the same musical wavelength. We don't even need to speak. Everything becomes clear when he plays and I sing. Our hearts beat in unison. But I'm not at peace with myself because you don't know anything about him at all." "Mummy, you have nothing to worry about. Neither he nor I talk about our pasts. I suppose it's not the right time yet. We simply enjoy each other's company." "Do you remember David from time to time?" "No, I've moved past that pain, and it's a good thing that he and I broke up, because otherwise I would never have met Ron. He means a lot to me." After these conversations, Carrie struggled to fall asleep for a long time. She lay in the dark and remembered the light, casual touches of Ron's hand, his warm smile when he sensed that she was upset about something. And she desperately wanted to know what had happened to Ron, what had led to his blindness. "Carrie, let's take a walk, shall we?" Ron suggested one day, when the visitors had already dispersed. "It's such a lovely evening. It would be a shame to go home." Carrie gladly agreed, and they walked in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. "Ron," the girl broke the silence, "what did you do before?" "You won't believe it." He grinned bitterly. "I was an accountant." "An accountant?" the girl marvelled. "But you play so well. I would have thought you studied at the conservatory." "When I was a kid, I attended a music school and developed a fondness for playing the piano. I would often sit down at the instrument and play from memory whenever I had a free moment. It's similar to how some people can type without looking at the keyboard. I learned to play in the same way. I don't rely on sheet music. My musical memory is excellent. Without it, I would have given up long ago." The man fell silent, as if realizing he had said too much. He pressed his lips tightly together, his cheekbones set. Carrie remained silent, afraid to interrupt this moment of honesty, and waited for Ron to continue his confession. And she was not mistaken. "I had a fiancée," he said with a bitter grin. "We dated for a long time, and I eventually decided to propose to her. I'm not sure what always held me back from taking that step. Perhaps my intuition warned me of trouble. She was incredibly beautiful and enjoyed the attention of men. She dressed in a flashy, even provocative manner. I had to protect her from persistent admirers numerous times. I even asked her to dress more modestly, but she laughed at me, claiming I was possessive and insisting on standing out from the crowd. She didn't listen to anything I said, preferring to showcase all the natural beauty she possessed." Carrie timidly asked, "Did you love her very much?" "Madly, despite her antics," he replied. "We were busy preparing for our wedding, and both eagerly anticipated the event. I truly regret not insisting that she change her outfit on that ill-fated evening. The trouble began when we left the restaurant and noticed that we were being followed by some thugs. My fiancée took the liberty of flirting with them, as she always did. She enjoyed driving men crazy and relished the power she had over them. And she enjoyed testing my patience. She claimed that it made me more passionate. So these random admirers assumed they could invite her to continue the evening. Naturally, I tried to explain to them that they had misunderstood her intentions and that she had no intention of going anywhere with them. A fight broke out. While I was dealing with two of them, the third approached from behind and struck me on the head with a heavy object.
I woke up in the hospital surrounded by darkness. The doctors initially held hope that my eyesight would return. I waited for a month, but unfortunately the miracle never happened. The diagnosis was total blindness.
What happened to your fiancé?
Carrie asked quietly, already aware of what would come next. Fiancé? She left me. On the very same day, she heard the doctor's verdict. She no longer needed me. I had to quit my job and I didn't know what to do with myself. All the doors seemed closed to me. The only job offers I received were low-paying ones, which I declined. I needed money for rehabilitation and treatment. One day, as I was passing by a cafe, I heard someone playing a melody, terribly. I sat down at the instrument and played. The cafe owner offered me a job, and I accepted. The pay is good, and sometimes the customers give generous tips. I enjoy what I do.
Ron and Carrie stopped near a street lamp, which illuminated their faces.
But recently, going to work is not just a routine for me. It feels like flying, the man confessed, looking directly at the girl, just as he had during their first meeting. Carrie even felt that he could see her. I'm grateful that you happened to hear me that day by chance. It almost feels like I played specifically for you that day, as if my music was meant to guide you to me. He reached out and gently touched Carrie's mask, a look of confusion on his face. Ron carefully removed it. Stop, please, Carrie protested. You won't like what's underneath the mask. But the man held her face in his hands and lightly kissed her. Then he ran his face over her skin, feeling the scars, and his face grew pale. I knew it would repulse you. A tear formed in the girl's eyes, rolling down her scarred cheek. No, Ron said, gently wiping away the tear with his thumb as he ran it across her skin. I don't know what happened to you, and I can't see your face, but I can feel your soul. Remember when I said that nature takes something from a person, but gives them something else in return? I fell in love with you like a boy the first minute I heard your voice. And then I realized that you are an incredibly delicate and vulnerable person, just as lonely as I am. Yes, I lost my sight, but in return, I received a true gift from God, the opportunity to meet you. And now, I can't imagine life without you. Do you believe me? Ron looked at her without pity or fear. There was only love in his eyes. He pulled her close and kissed her, and she kissed him back. Can you hear the music playing in my heart? Yes, Carrie whispered faintly. She was unusually excited by the kiss. It seemed to her that for a moment they were both lifted off the ground. Their mutual feelings were strong and vivid. Ron, my heart is singing for you. Only you will hear it. I never imagined it was possible to fall in love like this. Now I have something to live for. I'm happy. They stood hugging each other for a long time. Carrie hid her face on his chest, feeling protected. They felt happy to be near each other. They had each other now. Son, Mrs. Berger announced joyfully, I have found you a bride. It's a great match. I've always dreamed of such a daughter-in-law. Mum, are you starting again? David grumbled. He was already tired of the brides his mother offered him. I'm not getting married just yet. Why not? Are you still pining for that Carrie? I thought you were done with your ugly fiancé. Don't start, Mum, the man grumbled. I've turned that page of my life. Good for you. Tomorrow, Jessica has agreed to come and visit us. You'll see, she'll be a wonderful wife for you. Please behave in a hospitable manner. I hope you'll listen to my opinion. Take a good look at her. You know, Mum never gives you bad advice. And the next evening a rich table was set anticipating the guest. Sonny, open the door, Mother said upon hearing the bell ring. Hello? A gorgeous blonde woman with high, firm breasts stood at the threshold. Her blue eyes looked appraising, and her plump lips opened as if anticipating a kiss. Hello? The dumbfounded David said, letting the beauty into the apartment. Jessica, Mrs. Berger sang out. We've been waiting for you. Come in, dear. Pay no attention to this oaf. He has completely forgotten how to court beautiful women. Sit down at the table. David, pour us a glass of wine. Let's drink to our meeting. The evening flew by unnoticed. The young woman turned out to be talkative and well-read. David kept his eyes on her. Only sometimes a shadow came over his face when the image of Carrie involuntarily appeared in his memory. Jessica was the opposite of her. In her, there be no modesty, refinement, or malleability like Carrie, he pondered, looking at the girl. But she is damnably attractive, uninhibited, and I like it. Well, what do you think, Sonny? Mrs. Berger asked while clearing the table. I told you, she's a very nice girl, not like that of your previous bride. You can't be ashamed to go out in public with her. And she's beautiful, intelligent, and can hold a conversation. You couldn't find a better wife. Why don't you say something? I noticed right away that you had your eye on her. I won't deny the obvious, sighed David. I liked her. That's good, said his mother. Don't delay. Meet her again and then propose to her. There's no need to hesitate. You're not a boy anymore. You are both adult people, and soon you will have children. She sobbed. Will I really live to see grandchildren? Finally, my heart will calm down. 3 months later, a wedding ring already flaunted on Jessica's ring finger. Mrs. Berger was happy, and she adored her daughter-in-law. Look, Sonny, what cream Jessica gave me, she bragged. My face has become as soft as a baby's. David, she exclaimed after a while, Jessica complains that you don't want to go on vacation with her. She says you don't pay any attention to her at all. I would go with pleasure, the man wryly replied to his mother's remark. If your Jessica learned to save a little. I don't have time to earn money, but she spends it on all sorts of nonsense. You two should go together. I see you two get along well. Oh, you're so ungrateful. Your wife makes your home comfortable, and you're always dissatisfied with her. Look how nice it's become at home. She makes you look like a decent man. What do you miss? Mum, you don't have to interfere in our relationship. The man lost his temper. We'll figure it out on our own. Son, how do you talk to your mother? I'm sorry, Mum, but you're always telling me how to live my life. This is my family and my wife. We'll solve our own problems. Upset, David drove home. What are you dissatisfied about? He snapped at his wife from the threshold. I work like an ox so that you can visit beauty salons and expensive clothes stores. And you complain to your mother that I don't pay enough attention to you. So tell her why I'm hardly ever at home. Well, why do you resent it, dear? Jessica spoke peacefully, kissing her husband, but he pushed her away. You're so rude. Nothing terrible happened. It just came to the conversation that you're not home much. Don't you know why I always work? Because I am trying to get enough money for you, for your endless bills, your massages, your manicures. Damn them all to hell. You spared me money? The woman was ready to use her main weapon, her tears. When you talked me into marrying you, you loved me. You gave me gifts and swore you'd take care of me. Yes, I thought I was in love with you, but now I realise I made a big mistake. I rushed into marriage, so my mum wouldn't bother me with this anymore. It's her choice. You've both pissed me off. You've drunk all my blood, and you can't get enough. Oh, that's how you're talking now, Jessica cried. I hate you. Get out of the house. I'd rather sleep at work than live under the same roof with a hysterical woman like you, shouted David, and jumped out of the house, slamming the door. He walked through the city and thought, why did I obey my mother? I don't love my wife. I am a miserable man. At least I can be honest with myself. I still love Carrie. I can't forget her. Where is she now? Since that memorable day when I lost sight of her, so much water has passed. Her cell phone is silent. Where is she? How is she living? I am still tormented
by an abiding sense of guilt for her. He walked on, unable to make out the road, seeing no one around, but suddenly he stopped. What the hell? There was a stirring in his heart, a long-forgotten, warm feeling, remembering something dear, native. Who's singing that? The man hurried to the sound of the marvellous voice, afraid that now the song would fall silent and he would not be able to find the performer. David literally ran into the cafe and froze. Carrie was standing at the microphone. Her face was hidden by a mask, but he would recognize her voice, her figure, even in the crowd. The customers applauded as the last sounds of music faded away. "Carrie!" David stepped towards his former bride. "I've been looking for you, but I didn't expect to find you here. Your voice brought me here." "Hello, David." The woman spoke calmly. "Why were you looking for me?" "I missed you. Have you forgotten me?" "Even if I wanted to forget, I can't." She grinned. "My face reminds me of you every morning and evening. The rest of the time, I hide behind a mask, and I'm quite content with my life. Why did you come here?" "You have a right to reproach me. I admit I did a mean thing to you then. But it's never too late to make things right. I want you to come back to me. I'm different now, but I still love you. I beg. I'm sorry. Let's start over." "It's too late. I've changed too. I've learned to see people as fake." "Have you forgotten how good we were together? I can't live without you." "So much you can't live that you got married?" She nodded at his wedding ring. "This marriage means nothing to me." He hastily removed the ring and put it carefully in his pocket. "I still remember our meetings, our kisses. I don't love Jessica." "It's a pity, but I love my husband, and I'm not going to change a thing. If you had come back when I needed you the most, when I didn't want to live, then we could have been happy again. But you chickened out, hid under your mother's skirt." "Yes, I was cruelly mistaken, I admit, but you must understand me. I was frightened. Forgive me. Forgive me, I was a fool. I didn't realize what a treasure I'd lost. Only now I realize how much you meant to me. You have the right to hate me. I'll bear it. Just don't send me away." "I forgave you." Carrie looked at her former lover with pity. "And I have no hatred for you. Strangely enough, even grateful, because the ordeal has made me strong." "Then give me a chance, please. We can try to be happy." "I'm already happy," Carrie replied. "I have a caring husband, and we are expecting a child." David only now noticed the rounded belly of his former lover. He stood silently and watched as Carrie returned to the microphone. A melody played and the woman sang. David saw the love Carrie looked at the musician with and realized that he had lost her forever. He turned around and, dejected, went outside. He was returning to his home, and a song about love, loyalty, and happiness was singing after him.